So if you're struggling to actually run static content for your brands, this video will be super helpful for you. I break down what are some examples that you can run for your brand, and also what you should be thinking about in terms of the process and the psychology around what should be included in that content. So feel free to watch through the video, watch how I break down the ads and how you can apply it for your own business. So in today's video, we're going to walk through how to run static ads for your e-commerce business. Now, this principle actually applies to any business or any ad account, but the most important thing to realize here is that it needs to be much more than just showcasing a product image or a product photo on like a flat lay, especially if your brand is something that needs a lot of education. It's a consumable, it's something that's applicable on skin or hair, whatever it may be. If your product requires more education and is not an apparel business, you will have to do some more education on the ad level. So in this example, we're going to walk through a hair care brand called Goldilocks. Now, they do a really great job of educating the customer around what the product is about, or at least what the consumer thinks about the product. So this type of ad showcased on the screen here is a really good example of what the product can really do for the consumer. So this is essentially an image ad that's being running on Meta, and it almost seems like a Facebook comment on like a post, for example. So this is a person showing a Facebook comment, and then the brand is kind of showing a before and after, and then they're featuring the product image in the middle. What this kind of does is, as a consumer, it feels very organic in terms of the product review. This is something a customer will post. This is actually pulled from a real generic review that a customer's given, so even builds even more credibility to the brand. And now all we have to do essentially is, once we've got the credibility of the customer, we just have to showcase a before and after of how impactful our product is to someone's hair in the scenario, and then we can show the product in the middle. Now, this has been tested a couple of different times, and how you can essentially expand your hit ratio, win ratio, is testing a bunch of different reviews. What we've noticed works really well for reviews in particular is having more long form reviews that have more depth and volume into what they're saying, what the customers are saying, why they love it so much, rather than just saying, hey, this is a nice product that feels really good in my hair. Talk about how it controls the frizz of your hair. Talk about how silky it makes your hair feel. Talk about how you've tried hundreds of different products and nothing's worked, but this product really worked. So this is something that you can't really fake. It's something that, you know, if your product is good enough, consumers will naturally say this, and it's your job as a marketer to capture these moments and then figure out how to display it to new customers. So this is a really good example of how to do that, and how you can actually split test this, you know, hundreds of different ways. You know, not only in terms of just this format, you can take it in different formats and showcase, you know, this particular review in maybe different moments. Maybe you can have it with a customer alongside the review on the left hand side, or you can even show this as like a text message. There's different formats you can use to really juice out as much volume as you can from this particular review. So this is one thing that I think, you know, if you're a new brand, it might be a bit difficult, but you can get reviews from family and friends. But if you're a brand that's really getting into static content, I would highly recommend leveraging a lot of your reviews and making sure you can use them in your ads here. Now, the second example here is slightly more generic, but it follows a similar format of making it look very organic on the feed. This is essentially an Instagram story response, and a lot of consumers are quite familiar with how this works. So how it usually works, for anyone who's not familiar, is people can ask questions on their Instagram story, and this is kind of what, you know, if a creator responds, this is what a response would look like. So I would highly recommend to test this type of format out. It's very different on the feed, and also allows you to get quite creative with how your responses and even the questions can look like. We've had a similar creative running for one of our brands where we've run it, you know, I would say 30-40 different ways, asking different questions, just because this particular format worked really well. The goal is to figure out, okay, if it works really well, how can we expand it and, you know, try it multiple different ways so we can get more volume and variation out of it. One thing our Meta rep has suggested is Meta doesn't really classify it as a variation. So when you are making these types of iterations, try and have it in different types of backgrounds, so Meta is able to figure out, okay, cool, this is like a totally new concept, let's give spend and, you know, budget towards this creative if you're running it in a CBO. So I would recommend, if you're launching multiple different variations of this type of content, make sure you're actually creating it with different backgrounds so that Meta is able to differentiate it here. So again, the core principle when launching a lot of the static content, it's purely a volume game. You want to figure out, if you want to figure out what a top performing ad looks like or how to create a top performing ad, it's all about getting closer to your customer and figuring out what they really love about your product and why they're kind of purchasing your product. If you can get both of those information into an image or into some type of creative that's static, and then when they click on it, it goes to like a product page or a landing page, and that does majority of the selling, that is my sole recommendation. There is no secret bullet to it. It's just getting your customer feedback, getting your customer insights, and just portraying it onto the image in the best way you possibly can in order to stop the scroll and get consumers, or at least the right consumers, to click on it and action on your website.